Hey there. Ready to unlock some next level self-discipline?
Yeah, let's dive into it.
We're ditching the surface level advice today.
It's about time, right?
Right. And diving deep into some, well, surprising strategies. The stuff we found just for you. This is going to be good.
It is good. It's time to go beyond those typical willpower platitudes, you know?
Oh, I know them well. Just try harder.
Right, like willpower is some magic bullet. What we're really talking about here, it's fascinating. It's psychology, habit formation, even a dash of brain science in the mix.
I love it. Okay, so let's unpack that. Why does that whole just be more disciplined thing so often backfire?
Well, I think it all starts with understanding, really understanding that self-discipline, it's not about becoming some kind of willpower robot. Like you're immune to every temptation out there.
Right, because that's just not real easy.
Not at all. It's more like, how do I put it? It's like having this personal internal GPS
Okay.
guiding you, right, toward those long-term goals, even when things get messy. Because, let's be real, life rarely goes according to plan.
That internal GPS analogy, that is spot on. So instead of aiming for this like perfection, it's more about navigating those inevitable detours. Tell me more.
Exactly. And, I think where we often get tripped up is thinking that self-control and self-discipline are the same thing, but there's a key difference.
Okay, break it down for me.
Self-control, that's your short-term muscle, like
Yeah.
resisting the cookie when you're trying to eat healthier.
Oh, yeah.
Self-discipline is the bigger picture. It's about those consistent actions, day after day, that are moving you towards those larger goals.
Okay, that distinction is really important. So it's not about winning every single, food-related showdown.
Right.
It's about the choices that support the bigger picture of where you want to be. But, and let's be real, we live in a world practically engineered to hijack our best intentions.
Oh, 100%. We are bombarded constantly with instant gratification traps. It's everywhere you look, right? Whether it's food delivery apps or social media.
Don't forget that endless scroll.
Oh, of course. The endless stream of online content. It's no wonder so many of us struggle with self-discipline.
Seriously, it's like those apps are designed to make saying no nearly impossible.
They almost are.
Knowing all of that, where do we even begin to, fight back?
I think awareness is key.
Okay.
When you understand that our brains are naturally drawn to those quick rewards,
Yeah.
then it's not about beating yourself up for slipping up. It's about making more intentional choices, ones that align with that long-term vision we talked about.
So it's less about labeling ourselves as good or bad, and more about being strategic in a world that's constantly vying for our attention.
Precisely. That awareness, that's the first step towards lasting change. It's about understanding the rules of the game, right? So you can play it strategically.
And come out on top.
Yes, exactly.
I'm all about stacking the deck in my favor.
Me too.
Now, our sources mention that a lot of the kind of common wisdom around self-discipline
Oh, yeah.
is actually holding us back. So let's dive into busting those myths wide open, shall we?
Let's do it. It's time to debunk those self-discipline myths. I think we'll both feel lighter once we do.
One of the biggest myths, the ones we really buy into, is that self-discipline, it's all about willpower.
Like it's this magical thing.
Right. Like we've got this magical reservoir, we can just tap into it anytime. But the truth is willpower. It's a finite resource,
That makes sense though, because I feel like I only have so much.
Exactly.
It's not unlimited.
It's actually more like a muscle. It gets tired with use.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely hit that wall where it's just like willpower gone.
Oh, yeah.
Usually right around the time those afternoon cravings kick in.
Exactly. And that's why so many people, they just give up on their goals. They think they've failed, but really they've just run out of willpower fuel.
It's like that's the gas tank's empty.
Exactly. The more sustainable approach, and one that really resonated with me in your research, is about building habits.
It's not brute willpower alone. It's habits that support our goals.
So instead of trying to white knuckle our way through every temptation,
Right.
it's about setting ourselves up for success, like designing our environment and routines in a way that makes those healthy choices easier.
You nailed it. You're making those positive actions almost automatic, so we're not constantly having to tap into that limited willpower reserve.
Yeah.
And on that note, there's another myth I really am passionate about busting.
Okay, let's do it.
It's that we need to be on all the time. constantly vigilant against every possible slip-up. It's exhausting even to think about.
It really is. It's like trying to juggle flaming torches while riding a unicycle on a tightrope.
Right.
Eventually, something's got to give.
Exactly. That level of hypervigilance.
Yes.
Not sustainable. We're human. We need to give ourselves permission to be human, to embrace those off days, and focus on progress, not perfection.
So instead of aiming for this impossible standard of never messing up, it's more about like riding the waves, adapting to those inevitable setbacks, and just focusing on that overall direction we're heading.
Precisely. And you know what? That leads us to another myth. This one, it keeps people stuck. The guilt and shame cycle. It's this idea that if you're not feeling bad about slipping up, you're not doing it right.
Oh, that guilt spiral is the worst. It's like you eat one cookie and suddenly your entire self-worth crumbles around you. Talk about counterproductive.
The worst. Time to ditch the guilt.
Yeah.
We need to embrace self-compassion.
Okay.
We all slip up. We all stumble as part of the human experience. The key, viewing those slip-ups as opportunities for learning and growth, not reasons to just throw in the towel.
That's such a refreshing perspective, and it makes so much more sense because when we beat ourselves up over every little mistake, it just makes it that much harder to get back on track.
Absolutely. And remember, you're on your own unique journey here. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to self-discipline. What works for one person might not work for another, and that's perfectly okay.
I love that. It's about figuring out what works best for you based on your personality, your goals, and even like your brain chemistry.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, our sources dug into some seriously cool, unconventional strategies for building self-discipline. Let's dive into those, shall we? I'm ready for some actionable hacks.
Let's do it. One approach I find fascinating is, the idea of micro self-discipline. Have you heard of this one?
I've seen it mentioned, but I haven't like fully explored it.
Okay.
I'm all ears.
So it's based on this premise that self-control, like any skill, can be strengthened, but it's about consistent practice, even in those seemingly insignificant moments throughout the day.
So instead of focusing solely on those like big, hairy goals, it's about building those like tiny, almost invisible muscles of self-control in our everyday life. Give me an example.
Absolutely. Imagine scrolling through social media.
Okay.
And you get that familiar urge, right, to just refresh the feed.
Oh, I know it well.
Even though you just checked it like moments ago.
Yeah.
Instead of immediately giving in, what if you paused and intentionally chose to wait, even for just 60 seconds?
That feels oddly doable.
Right.
It's like that moment of choice, that tiny pause is where the magic happens.
Exactly, those micro moments of resistance.
Yeah.
Practice consistently. That adds up. It creates this incredible mental resilience. Like you're building a strong foundation brick by tiny brick until you have this unshakable inner strength.
I love that analogy. It's not about being superhuman, it's about building that mental muscle through consistent, intentional action. What else you got? I'm ready to load up my self-discipline toolkit.
All right, let's talk about temptation bundling.
Okay.
It's a strategy that's, well, as clever as it is effective.
Okay.
It's all about strategy here. Finding ways to pair something you need to do with something you want to do.
Intrigued. Give me a real-world example. How can I put this into action?
Let's say you love listening to podcasts,
Love it.
but you also struggle with motivating yourself to exercise.
Also me.
Okay, so temptation bundling would be you only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while working out. So you're essentially linking a pleasurable activity to one you're trying to build into a habit.
That is genius. I actually do something similar. I save my favorite audiobooks for when I'm like doing chores.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much more enjoyable those mundane tasks become when paired with something I genuinely look forward to.
You've instinctively tapped into the power of temptation bundling. That's exactly it. It's about finding those pairings that feel rewarding and sustainable for you. It turns those dreaded have-to tasks into something you almost look forward to.
Okay, that's a game changer. What else can we do to like outsmart our brains, make self-discipline feel less like an uphill battle?
Well, since we're on a roll with clever strategies, let's talk about gamification.
Yes.
It's exactly what it sounds like. You're bringing that element of play and reward into our goals and habits.
I'm all about gamification. I love those apps that like track your progress and make it feel like you're leveling up in real life.
Exactly. And our brains are wired to respond to rewards. By incorporating elements of gamification into our self-discipline journey, we tap into that innate motivation system and make the entire process more engaging, more enjoyable.
So instead of just relying on sheer willpower, we can actually like hack our brains into wanting to stick with our goals. Tell me more.
Think about it. What if you set up a system where you earn points for completing certain tasks? Or maybe you create a visual tracker and you get to like color in a section every time you hit a milestone.
Okay, I'm already feeling more motivated just thinking about it. It's amazing how much more appealing a challenge becomes when you add like a little friendly competition or a sense of progress.
Exactly. It transforms those mundane tasks into something we actively want to pursue. It's no longer about forcing ourselves to do something we dread. It's about playing a game that we're invested in winning.
Okay, I am here for this. What else can we add to our arsenal of self-discipline strategies?
Let's dive into a concept that's a bit more, mindset focused, but equally powerful.
Mhm.
Identity shifting. This is about shifting your focus from what you want to do to who you want to be.
Ooh, that's a powerful distinction. So instead of I need to work out more, it's I am the kind of person who prioritizes their health.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's about stepping into the identity of the person you aspire to become. It's less about willpower at that point and more about alignment. Your actions then naturally start to reflect this new self-image.
I love that. It's like you're playing a role, but instead of pretending, you're actually becoming that person through your actions and choices.
Exactly. And the more you embody that identity, the more ingrained it becomes in your subconscious. It's like you're rewriting the script of your life one choice at a time.
This is mind-blowing stuff. What other strategies can help us like rewire our thinking and make self-discipline feel more effortless?
Let's talk about a strategy borrowed from Stoic philosophy. Negative visualization. I know, it sounds a bit intimidating,
Yes.
but bear with me, it's quite powerful.
Negative visualization. I'll admit that doesn't sound particularly uplifting. What's the thought process behind it?
It's not about dwelling on negativity. It's about using the potential for negative outcomes as a motivator to stay on track. Think of it as a mental exercise to make those consequences feel more real and immediate.
Interesting. So it's like a preemptive strike against procrastination by reminding ourselves why we're choosing to put in the effort in the first place.
Exactly. For example, if you're trying to save more money, instead of just visualizing that, dream vacation you're saving for, you might also take a moment to visualize the stress, the worry of being in debt. It's not about being pessimistic, it's about using those potential downsides as fuel to make choices that align with your goals.
That's a really interesting approach. It's like shining a light on the potential pitfalls so we can steer clear and stay the course. I'm intrigued. What else can we do to set ourselves up for success?
This next one might seem a bit counterintuitive at first, but stick with me. It's called Manipulate Your Environment for Self-Sabotage.
Wait, did I hear that right? Self-sabotage. I'm not sure I'm following.
I know, it sounds a bit strange. But it's about strategically setting up your environment to make those undesirable choices less appealing, even slightly uncomfortable.
Okay, I'm listening. Paint me a picture. How does this work in real life?
Let's say you're trying to cut back on, mindless snacking. Instead of keeping a jar of cookies on the counter, you might store them in a less convenient location like a high shelf or in the back of the pantry. It adds an extra layer of effort to reach for those tempting treats.
I get it. It's about increasing the friction,
Yes.
making those unhealthy choices just a little bit harder to make. I like it. What other environmental hacks can we use?
Think about your phone.
Oh, the biggest one.
Right. Constant source of distraction for many of us. What if, during work hours, you put it in another room? Or even in a timed lockbox?
Ooh, I like that.
By making it less accessible, you're less likely to get sucked into those, digital time wasters.
Those are great tips. It's amazing how much our environment influences our choices, even in subtle ways. Okay, hit me with another strategy. I'm on a roll.
Perfect. This next one is perfect for those times when even the thought of getting started on a task feels utterly overwhelming. The 2-minute rule. Have you heard of this one?
I've heard it in passing, but never really, put it into practice. Tell me more.
It's deceptively simple, but incredibly effective. Instead of focusing on the entirety of a daunting task, you commit to doing it for just 2 minutes.
So, for example, instead of I need to write this entire report, it's I'll just open the document and write for 2 minutes. That feels shockingly doable.
Exactly. And you'll often find that once you overcome that initial resistance, those 2 minutes, they easily turn into 5, then 10, and before you know it, you're making significant progress without even realizing it.
It's like you've tricked your brain into taking action by making the entry point so ridiculously achievable. I'm definitely adding that to my self-discipline toolkit. What else you got? I'm ready for more.
All right, let's tap into the power of our hyper-connected world with this next strategy: public accountability in a digital world.
Oh, this sounds intriguing. I've definitely felt the power of accountability before. There's something about, like, announcing a goal that makes me way more likely to follow through.
It's like having a built-in cheering section,
Yes,
but also maybe a little bit of that, I don't want to let anyone down pressure.
exactly. But how do we, like, leverage that in a digital space?
Think about all the online communities, social media platforms, even apps specifically designed for goal tracking. By publicly sharing your intentions, even with a supportive community or just your close friends, you're instantly adding that layer of accountability.
So it's about harnessing the power of the crowd, even if that crowd is just a handful of people who are, like, rooting for our success.
Precisely. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be as simple as posting a weekly update on your progress or joining an online group dedicated to that specific habit you're trying to build.
I love that we have so many options to play with. It's not about finding that one perfect strategy. It's about experimenting and discovering what works best for us in this moment with these goals.
Exactly. And it's about remembering that we don't have to do this alone. There's a whole world of support out there, both online and offline. Finding your tribe, that can make all the difference.
So we've explored a ton of really cool self-discipline strategies, but let's be real, putting them into practice, it's not always a walk in the park, right? What happens when we hit those inevitable roadblocks?
I think that's where things get really interesting. Because those moments, the ones where we stumble, those are actually prime opportunities for learning and growth.
I like that. Okay.
Let's talk about some common challenges, how we can navigate them like pros. Take gamification, for example. It's a fantastic tool. But if we're just relying solely on those external rewards, it can fall short. We hit a point where the points, the badges, they just don't hold that same allure anymore.
It's like that initial burst of motivation fades, and we're kind of left wondering, what now?
Exactly. And that's where I think the power of human connection comes into play. Instead of going it alone, imagine having that support system, a community cheering you on, holding you accountable.
There's something really powerful about knowing you're not in it alone. I totally agree.
Absolutely. Whether it's joining a fitness challenge with friends or finding an accountability buddy online or even just, sharing your goals with someone you trust, that social element can be incredibly motivating. I mean, we thrive in environments where we feel supported, understood.
It's like having that built-in cheering section, pushing us to keep going even when things get tough. Now I'm curious about the 2-minute rule. It seems so simple, yet even those 2 minutes can feel insurmountable on certain days.
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there staring at a task like, I just can't even.
The worst.
And those one of the simplest yet most effective tools, a timer.
A timer. Like I'm racing the clock to get those 2 minutes in.
Precisely. There's something about that visual countdown. It lights a fire under us. It creates this sense of urgency, eliminates the excuses, and oftentimes those 2 minutes, they effortlessly turn into 5, then 10, or even more.
It's like a mental hack to, like, outsmart procrastination.
Exactly.
Now, we talked about public accountability, which can be super powerful but also intimidating for some. So how do we strike that balance?
I think it's all about finding a level of comfort that feels authentic to you. Public accountability doesn't mean you have to broadcast every detail of your life to the entire internet. It's about finding your tribe, your people, the ones who will lift you up, celebrate your wins, and offer encouragement when you falter.
So it might be a gradual process, like starting with sharing your goals with a close friend, then maybe expanding to a small online group and just seeing what feels right along the way.
Exactly. It's about listening to your intuition, honoring what feels supportive, empowering for you. Remember, this is your journey. You get to choose how you want to share it with the world.
That's incredibly freeing. As we wrap up here, what's the most important takeaway you want listeners to carry with them on their self-discipline journey?
For me, self-discipline, it's not about achieving this mythical state of perfection. It's about progress. It's about embracing those imperfections and finding joy in the journey of becoming the best versions of ourselves.
Beautifully said. It's a process of exploration, experimentation, and above all, self-compassion. And on that note, it's time for us to sign off. This has been fantastic. I've learned so much.
Me too. This was great. Until next time, remember, you've got this.
And happy experimenting, everyone.